Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of the year again. It's the Steam Next Fest. And if you're not aware what that is or haven't heard about it, basically to give you a short rundown of the event, it's a bunch of demos that get hosted on Steam from indie devs all over the place, showcasing their work, the stuff that they're currently working on and looking to release. There's not really a release schedule for most of these games. A lot of them are still very early in development, but it's still a good way to get a good feel for what's coming up next and what's being worked on, and just seeing some of the hard work that these people have put into their games. I played a bunch of the games, somewhere in the ballpark of 25 of them. Some of them really were great, like ready to go, and some of them not so much. I'd hate to say that any of them were terrible because, you know, they're all demos, they're all still being worked on, they're all done by indie devs. Some of these demos were just way too short, and then other demos were probably about the right amount of time, at least for me. It just feels like it wouldn't be fair to judge them super hard of a 0 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 just based off of the 30 minutes that I got to play some of them. Some of them were actually very generous and let me play through like a good portion of the game, or weren't timed at all and just let you explore and have fun. So anyways, here's some of the games that I played that I thought either really stood out to me or were just worth mentioning. So the first one that I played that I really liked was called Bleak Sword. And it was very interesting in the art style and the stage layout and the enemy design and the character design and all that stuff. It was another pixel art game, but it was a 3D kind of action game. The combat felt pretty good for the most part. The only complaint that I had was some of the animations don't line up with the attacks, or the attacks that the enemies are making aren't very clear that it's an attack, so you just sometimes take damage and it doesn't feel very good. Especially when parrying attacks is an essential part of the combat system. Maybe that'll be something that'll change down the line, or maybe not. Progress through the stages, your health kind of stays the same, you heal a little bit at the end of every combat encounter. And then sometimes you get items, sometimes you level up so you can pick different perks to upgrade. And the thing that was the most interesting to me was if you die in a stage, you lose everything, but you repeat the stage. And if you complete the stage after you've failed it and lost everything, you actually get all your stuff back. So that was a little interesting bit. I'm just a sucker for the 2D art in the 3D setting. I don't know what that is or what that style is, but we're seeing a lot more of it these days, and I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah, so this game just wasn't for me. It looked cool. I didn't have a bad time playing it. It's just not really my kind of thing. The next game I played was called Forever Skies. It was pretty far from finished. I'd have to say there was a lot of bugginess, a lot of quality of life things that probably needed to be changed at some point. So this game was actually one that I had been keeping my eye on for a while, even before the Next Fest, so I was pretty excited to see that there was a demo to actually get in here and try. The premise of it's really good. I'm really excited to see where it goes. So it feels a lot like Subnautica, except the major difference is that you're in the sky instead of the ocean, and the atmosphere is the sea that you're sailing across, and it's very uninhabitable. So a lot of it is going to be going through and going deeper down into the atmosphere. So I'm really going to go more into this one, especially with some of the complaints that I had, just because I'd like to see them addressed at some point. One of my biggest complaints about the game is the audio. The audio cues oftentimes will either overlap with each other or just sound really flat and just not very appealing. They need a lot of work in that sense. Actually, so I'll go ahead and play a little bit of a sample of some of the audio that really annoyed me. Mild inconvenience. I'm not gonna be able to get back on here. That doesn't stop when I get out. That's cool. Yeah, so there's so there's no way that's gonna get annoying, right? So one of the other things that I would have to complain about is everything just felt really scarce, so it kind of indicated that this game is a long way off from being finished. You kind of sail about from island to island, so to speak. You're at the top of skyscrapers looking for different blueprints or different items that you need, but most of it just felt empty. Like, even in a quote-unquote desolate world, you just kind of floated around in a sea of pollution looking for scraps, and there wasn't even that many scraps to be found. And there wasn't a whole lot in the flora, fauna section of the game. You don't really get to see a lot of what's populating the planet now or what is mutated to grow. It just seems like the environment is the main hostility here, which is all fine and good, but it leaves you feeling not very threatened, especially when you get the ship. So a lot of what I experienced in the game was just kind of trying to gather resources that just took forever, and the other annoyance that I had was when you're crafting things, it takes a really long time for them to actually craft for a single-player survivor game. I'm not saying they have to be instantaneous, but there was just some bits where I was waiting for something to craft for what felt like, a full minute and a half, and it was just a small little thing to add to my ship to purify water or something like that. I will say the ship was probably one of the best and most interesting parts of the game, aside from the environment. Yeah, the environment was desolate and empty, but it is kind of supposed to be that way to an extent. Traveling around in the airship during the storms felt pretty cozy, everything was pretty great there. It's always a plus when your base in a survival game just gives you that feeling of coziness. Some of my favorite games do that fairly well, and just kind of something that you can just look out into the harshness of the environment around you and just be mesmerized by the beauty and the danger of it. I also really like that it was kind of fully, well, not entirely fully, but pretty close to fully customizable. You can add other rooms, you can expand, you can change the flooring, the walls, the windows, you can even have a glass floor so you can see what's underneath you. All of it looked pretty good. One of the other complaints that I would say is the quality of life. The UI just kind of feels dated. I know it's been worked on for a while, but even for, say, 3 years ago, it still looks pretty rough. The inventory system was kind of not great. Oftentimes when you're using the mining leader that's attached to your ship, it kind of locks on to the items that you're trying to mine, so it kind of like wiggles a little bit, shakes the camera, and just kind of a little nauseating. Something that kind of didn't really need to be added. I understand they're trying to add to the game feel and make you feel like you're mining something, but it just doesn't really do it super well. Other than that, though, it was a pretty good experience, and I'm definitely keeping my eye on this game going forward. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good one, but it probably needs about another year or so to bake. Alright, so this next one is called Atomic Picnic. I played this one for about 7 minutes. It's not that it was bad, it certainly wasn't, and actually, I have pretty high hopes for this one going forward. So this next one I played is called Atomic Picnic, and I only played it for 7 minutes. It's not because the game was bad, it wasn't finished. Even in the demo sense, there was textures missing, there was just nothing in the environment. Pretty much all that they had was the stage, the weapons, the enemies, and a handful of other things that they had added. That being said, I'm actually really looking forward to see where this one goes. Hopefully by the next Steam Next Fest, there will be a lot bigger and a lot more in-depth demo to actually play. But the reason why I'm looking forward to it and looking to see where it goes in the future is because just the 7 minutes that I played, the game feel actually felt like it was the foremost focus of the game. Movement was super fluid. There's some pretty cool stuff that you could do with that. There's going to be a lot of potential upgrades down the line for that as well. I can tell just by the way that it's set up. It's a multiplayer game, which is also going to be pretty cool. It's also really nice that you can just hop in, hop out really quick. So it looks like they might even have different champions or different classes or something that they're going to add down the line. They have, when you first start out, a map select, so they definitely plan on doing more than just the first area that they give you. There's secret areas, The only reason that I know there were secret areas is because they're areas that they literally had programmed in as quote-unquote secret areas, but they just were open, and it was just showing telemetry and everything else. It looks like there's just a ton of potential for this to go either way, so hopefully it goes in the direction of being something that I really enjoy. Alright, so this one, Outlanders. I don't know if it's really fair to say that it was a demo game because it's just a mobile game. It's getting a PC port, and that's what I got to play. I think it already exists on Apple Arcade, but I don't really want to pay that to play Apple Arcade. I don't play enough games on my phones, aside from a handful of free ones that are just log in and collect your daily reward and just be on your way. This one, though, it was really chill. It's a decent resource management and colony management game. I like the low poly graphics. Those always kind of get to me. So a lot of information is sacrificed for aesthetic. It's trying to keep with that simplistic, hence the low poly look. It just kind of sacrifices a bunch of stuff that you would need to know, like different resources, etc., etc. It just gives you the overall, like, you have this much food, but it doesn't tell you what kind of food that you have or what that food provides as far as hunger for citizens or what they need. There is a more detailed menu that you can look at that actually breaks all of that down, but it's kind of hidden behind other menus, and it's some of it's information that you actually should know while you're going forward. Other things weren't very clear either, like there wasn't anything that told me that I can make decrees to kind of keep people doing one thing or do another, or work harder or work less, or reproduce more or reproduce less. Stuff like that wasn't really explained going forward. There is a campaign. I don't think that I was playing the campaign. It was really hard to tell because I played the tutorial and then it thought it put me into the next campaign, and then eventually I failed the level because everybody got mad and revolted. But it also just kind of seemed like I was in the sandbox mode, so I really couldn't tell what I was in game mode wise. There was no thing that kept me informed on what my current objectives were or what I was supposed to do going forward to beat the stage. If I was in the sandbox mode, it seems weird that I just eventually ended up failing because, yeah, resources are limited. Eventually, the society is going to collapse under its own weight. But yeah, it was a pretty decent chill game. Pretty much fully ready to ship. I'm not sure why it's not out yet, but that's beyond me. Maybe they're trying to build more hype for it with the Steam Next Fest before they release it so they can get bigger release numbers. Not really sure. Definitely kind of looking forward to this one. It is basically just baby's first resource management game. There are others that I would rather play instead of this, but it's not bad, especially if it's your first time playing a resource management game. So this one is called A Guidebook of Babel. It's not a bad puzzle game. I'm not really a puzzle aficionado in this kind of a setting. I'm more of a Professor Layton kind of guy. I like the riddles and, just the other kind of puzzles that you solve. All in all, not a bad game. I like the art style. The art style is really intriguing. The premise is pretty cool. It's very reminiscent of Scribblenauts. So the idea is that you use the butterfly effect to change events in the past to help you get over them in the future. So, for instance, in the tutorial, a book falls into a pile of fireworks, and you're supposed to read that book. So you actually go back in time and you rewrite and rearrange some things so that way the book ends up not falling in the pile of fireworks. And basically it's just kind of this recursive time loop thing that you have to go back in time to fix the problem after you play the stage the first time. I had to play the stage twice, and I didn't really like doing that just because I was taking mental notes of everything and where everything was, but then the first stage that I actually played, I ended up passing without going back in time anyways, and it wasn't really clear when or what I was supposed to do that on. Other than that, it was probably a pretty fun game. It wasn't for me, but it definitely looks like one that you should keep your eye on going forward, especially if you like puzzle games and the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey kind of stuff. Alright, so I don't know if I'm just getting older and just really don't like most games nowadays, like video games, or if just the demos that I played, all of the resource management ones seems to hit a little bit different. So this next one was called Fabledom. I wish the demo was just a little bit longer, but it was a really good experience. It seemed like it had some interesting spins on the genre with the hero character, which wasn't available in the demos, and then there was also like a courtship system with rival kingdoms, which again also wasn't available in the demo, but they kind of give you a glimpse of what that was going to be like. And they had seasons. That was really cool because I hadn't really seen a lot of that happening in resource management games or strategy games. Seasons never really plays a part on things, but it actually affects your crops and other things in this game. So that was a really nice touch. It kind of vaguely reminds me of like Warcraft 3, but if it was less about war and more about craft. The game looks like it's ready to ship though. From what I played, it seemed like a complete experience. Everything was there, they just held stuff off because they didn't want you playing it in the demo, they wanted you to buy the game. So hopefully this one comes out pretty soon. I'm actually eager to get my hands on this one. This is Inkbound. Holy shit, this is probably the best one that I've played so far out of all of them. It's got an endless delve, roguelike mechanics, with a beautiful setup and a premise, along with absolutely wonderful art and graphics to accompany this, and it 100% feels ready to ship, and it looks like it has a multiplayer functionality, since while I was playing, there was other people running around the hub, and there's a global chat. Along with seasonal levels, it looks like they have plans to do recurring content. All in all, this one looks pretty hype, and I'm leaving it on my wish list. Real-time turn-based action combat feel, which is definitely the most gamer sentence I've said in this video, I think. So you get to move around while you're making your turn and position yourself and do your different abilities, and your turn actually doesn't end until you've run out of energy, and each ability costs a certain amount of energy to do. Then the enemies take their turns and they make their movements, and some of the movements actually happen at the same time during your turn. So it's got this weird real-time thing to it, but none of the numbers or the damage is actually applied until the end of each respective turn. I only played one class, but it looked really fun. I had a good time. There's a little bit of strategy involved to it, but not a whole lot. It definitely seems more like it's an ARPG, just hiding under the shell of a real-time strategy. In the hub, there's different cosmetics and stuff like that you can unlock, which I imagine probably ties into the seasonal content that they have planned. You can also just swap out your classes. You can have a couple of different characters saved as well. There's upgrades and other things like that, and when you complete stages, you get to pick where you go next. You also get to pick different stages based out of the books that you come across. In some of the endings of other levels, you make delves into these books and you fight monsters until you clear the book or until you die, and then you get ejected back to the hub. Absolutely one of the best ones that I played so far. Really looking forward to seeing this one. Hopefully it comes out within the next year. Alright, so this last one is called Town Seek. I definitely have goopy gamer brain because it just made it go wee the whole time, and there's just no reason for that other than numbers go up. It's a pretty good 2D art style, like that Paper Mario's kind of style. It focuses mostly on trading and exploring. So you fly people around and you take them to the different landmarks and stuff like that as a tourist attraction for the local towns, and the towns pay you for it and you level up your reputation with the town. Each town trades in its own unique currency. You can get different items. They specialize in certain items in one town that maybe is in high demand in another town, so it's focused really on the trading aspect there. As you progress, you can unlock more tools and more things to do. It's basically as simple as it sounds. I still had a really good time and really enjoyed it. And this one also seems like it's ready to launch, so expect to see it pretty soon. Thanks for watching. Hope I'll see you next time.